recording. Great. All right. Welcome everyone for our next session here at FoodTreX Global 2021. My name is Eric Wolf, and I am really excited about this next session, Demystifying the Muslim Food-Loving Traveler. And we do ask the hard questions here at the WFTA. And I was really excited when Yvonne reached out to me and said that she would like to speak at one of our events. And we had to find the right fit for Yvonne's expertise. And it really kind of dovetailed very nicely into the sustainability theme of the summit, because as we've discussed earlier, for us, sustainability is comprehensive. It's people, planet, and profit. And so we're talking about the Muslim food-loving traveler today, a very large and often overlooked segment that is definitely worthy of attention, especially for businesses and destinations looking to diversify. So I'd like to welcome Yvonne Maffei and Soumaya Hamdi. And I will let them introduce themselves quickly, and I will get out of the picture and let you ladies take it away. So thank you again, and we're all looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks very much, Eric, for that kind introduction. Yes, so my name is Soumaya Hamdi, and I am the founder and managing director of Halal Travel Guide Limited. We're based in London in the UK. And just a little bit about what we do. We are experts in halal travel, so we share digital travel guides, we curate small group trips, and we also help in terms of brand positioning and messaging. So really today I'd like to kind of give you an introduction into the halal/Muslim travel market. We can use those phrases interchangeably before Yvonne will come on and share her expertise on halal food in particular. So just to give you kind of a broad brush overview, the halal travel market is estimated to be worth around $300 billion by 2026, and it is the fastest growing sector in travel and tourism. It's still a very nascent market, which means that it's quite easy for kind of stakeholders, whether it's travel agencies or tourism boards or hotels, to get involved at this early stage and make an impact, especially while kind of the big players are not currently yet in the game so much. So it's a great time, now is a great time to really start to take this segment of the global travel and tourism market much more seriously than it has been taken over the last 10 years. And in terms of the pandemic, we're likely to see that halal tourism in particular is going to be one of the sectors that will start to show the first signs of recovery. And one of the reasons for that is because we've got around 1 billion Muslims aged under 30. So they're younger, they're going to be much more willing to travel, shall we say, when travel restrictions start to ease. And they're going to want to kind of do all the things that they've been prevented from doing over the last year or so. So that's just kind of a broad brush overview of the state of the market and why you should be interested in it. And in fact, offers a really good opportunity, particularly for destination tourism boards, for example, looking to tap into a new market that is high value and that will bring a lot of value to the destinations, which we'll explore throughout this presentation. So you may be wondering what the Muslim traveler looks like. And honestly, it varies widely. We've got Muslims on every continent. This spans several languages, several cultures, whether you're looking at here in the UK, where there's around 3 million Muslims and a similar number in the US, or you're looking at Indonesia, where there is the largest Muslim population, or indeed India, several countries in Africa. So it's hugely diverse. That said, there are some key takeaways that we can kind of hone in on when we're looking at the Muslim travel market. The first one that I'd like to direct your attention to is that they are very highly educated. So we're looking at doctors, teachers, lawyers, professionals, business owners, entrepreneurs. These are people that are likely to have studied to kind of, I'd say, at their minimum of university level. They are entering their peak purchasing years as well. So we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that around 1 billion Muslims are aged under 30. These are people who are about to be entering their most financially powerful years. So they've got the money to spend, and they haven't necessarily had the opportunity yet to explore that much of the world because of the nascent nature of the Muslim travel market. Tie that in hand with the fact that we already know that kind of younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, they are very tech savvy. They want to be able to do everything on their phones. They want to have seamless online experiences, whether it's researching for trips, booking, everything from A to Z. these people are tech savvy and they want to have access to this type of information at their fingertips. And another key takeaway about the Muslim travel market is that women are leading the way. And in two key ways. We're seeing a rise in solo female travelers, but even amongst families and groups of friends who are traveling, women are the ones that tend to play a key role in decision making. We did a couple of surveys over the last few years at Halal Travel Guide, and we found that unanimously there was a higher proportion of women doing the research about where to go, doing the research about where to stay, choosing the itineraries. So they have huge influence in the way that Muslims are traveling, and indeed in the way that the market itself is being shaped. So what are the Muslim traveler needs and pain points? I mean, to break it down, halal travel is basically anything that makes traveling as a Muslim easier. And the number one thing for Muslims, and in fact, I think for anyone who's traveling, is to have access to good quality food, right? So for Muslims, this means having access to halal food as a minimum. And you may be wondering, well, how easy is that? I mean, 9 times out of 10, a destination wherever you are in the world will have some sort of halal food available. It's just not that readily well known about. It's just not that widely marketed. It's just not that much talked about. So if you've ever eaten in a Turkish restaurant, in a Persian restaurant, even some kind of, I remember here in the UK, Pizza Express, many restaurants and places already have halal food. It's just not that widely talked about. So halal food is a bare minimum for traveling as a Muslim. The second is having places to pray while traveling. And again, traditionally, this might be seen as mosques, but we're increasingly seeing kind of more ingenuity and innovation in this area. For example, in Korea, in tube stations, creating prayer places, in family restrooms where traditionally mothers would go to take care of their children and this sort of thing, adding in a small space for Muslims to pray, because of course, Muslims can pray anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a mosque, but because we pray 5 times a day, it's really important to feel comfortable that when you're out and about, you're able to stop, do your prayer. Some restaurants also have prayer spaces, and then continue about your day. The key pain points that we're seeing at the moment, and that we continue to see really, is a lack of online access, both in terms of planning trips and inspiration, and also trip booking. So there isn't kind of much information on what's halal and what's Muslim friendly, and there is information increasingly popping up on the internet, but a lot of it is scattered, as it's not in one place. So it is quite cumbersome to have to plan your trip as a Muslim. And it's the same for booking. And again, we're starting to see a shift in this. There are some key market players coming in, for example, halalbooking.com, but the market is still very much an open field. There's still a lot more opportunity for players to come in there and provide services to Muslims looking to book halal accommodations and halal holidays and this kind of thing. But a lot of the lack of service provision is around a general lack of awareness, knowledge, and understanding from the global travel market, which is one of the reasons why Yvonne and I wanted to share this information today, because it offers so many opportunities. When we looked closer at Muslim travelers, and again, this is from a survey that we conducted both in 2019 and 2018, we found that there is a strong link between Muslim travelers and themes of sustainability and responsible tourism. So, for example, we found 82% of millennial Muslim travelers like to connect with a local community, and 88% enjoy exploring local history and culture. They want to be able to have immersive experiences that traditionally have been really difficult to access as Muslims, whether it's because of a lack of service provision, whether it's because of a lack of knowledge, whether it's because perhaps the destination is not marketed as being Muslim friendly. I think France is probably a good example of a destination that doesn't necessarily have that messaging down on point. So Muslims want to be able to connect with local communities, whether it's having dinner with a local family, whether it's exploring the local history and culture with a tour guide. And all of this is beneficial to the local economy, as we know, because it means money is circulating in the local economy much more freely. There's much less tourism leakage, which is a huge issue for many destinations. But also you're more likely to get people that build connections with the destination and therefore repeat travelers. And I think this is probably one of the key features of responsible tourism, which is developing a connection with the destination so that you end up caring more about it and taking more care about how you're experiencing it. And just to give you an example, here all over the world, Muslims have just entered the month of Ramadan. And during this month, traditionally, Muslims like to give a lot in charity. So in the UK alone, last year, we saw around £150 million was donated to charity just during the month of Ramadan alone. And this is just kind of a small indication of how Muslims like to put their money where their mouth is, in the sense of they are values-based consumers. Whether they are buying services or goods, they will do a little bit more research, and they want to know that whatever they're putting their money towards, it's going to be supporting a greater cause. So they're particularly interested in companies, brands, destinations, narratives that have a story of bringing benefit. So how can you access the Muslim travel market? I've given you a few insights into how you can do that. And now to kind of get into the nitty-gritty and really practical details, Yvonne is going to be sharing her expertise with us.
Thank you so much, Soumaya. My name is Yvonne Maffei. I'm the publisher of a website called myhalalkitchen.com, which I started in 2008. I'm based in California in the United States, and what I noticed at the time in 2008 is that not many people were talking about halal food and cooking, especially as it relates to global cuisine. I myself, being an avid traveler and a lover of international foods, I wanted to show that halal food could be any type of cuisine globally could be made halal with the right substitutes and ingredients that Muslims may not have been aware of. So for example, Italian food, French food, I wanted to substitute things like wine and beer for halal ingredients, because I wanted anybody and everybody to enjoy food that that I knew was delicious and global in nature. So my love of anything food and travel it goes way back. So I literally wrote the book on halal cooking 101. And the reason was also that I wanted to inspire people to travel the world and to try different cuisines in countries and places that they might not think of going. When people think of halal food, they often think of Middle Eastern food, and that's not always the case. So for anyone who might not know what halal means, let me just be very brief and simple. Halal is just an Arabic word that means permissible. And any Muslim from any ethnicity or any part of the world may not even speak Arabic, but everybody knows what halal means. And basically, to make the food part simple, halal is mostly food that's void of pork and alcohol, and the meat is processed or sacrificed in a very specific way. And the way that most people can tell that something is halal is that usually there is a halal certification label on the food, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Next slide, please. So how important is halal to the global tourism market? Well, in the past, I've had really interesting conversations and presentations for chefs and caterers and people in culinary schools, culinary students, because when a person would understand what halal cooking is and how to make any cuisine halal, the job opportunities really open up. And that's true for chefs, caterers, people in the airline industry, supply chain, when people kind of understand what ingredients are halal, because that's a whole another really interesting aspect of the food industry. There's a lot that can be done to cater to this market. So also certification, there are people who are interested in becoming halal certifiers, and of course hotels and tourism boards. So there's so much opportunity, and Soumaya did such an excellent job of telling us about the numbers that really speak to this opportunity. Another thing is that the Muslim appetite is globally diverse. So Muslims really like different things, and many Muslims from in the UK and the US especially, they come from different parts of the world, like particularly the Middle East, North Africa, and they have a palate that is different and interesting. And so when they travel, they're also more open to trying different things and different and interesting cuisine options. So for example, when I went to Dubai or Turkey, in the hotels there, the buffets that are spread out for just for breakfast are fantastically interesting, that span food from, that are Spanish or Middle Eastern. They're really meat heavy. So this is a really interesting market to understand, especially if you're a chef and you're really interested in cooking different things. This is a market that will appreciate different kinds of food. But what I've also seen in recent years is that when I talk to people to explain what halal is a little deeper, what I find is that a lot of people who aren't Muslim are just really interested in it because they see halal restaurants popping up all over, and they've tasted the food and they find it to be really tasty, delicious. They find it to be healthier and a lot more interesting than other options. I think the halal guys here in the US might have done that favor to us, because people really find it very good, and it's just all over the US now. So in the end, I think being Muslim friendly is really good for business. It opens up a variety of trade opportunities, particularly with the Middle East, but not only. Actually, Soumaya covered this already, but we're both on the same wavelength when it comes to these pain points for Muslim travelers. So I think we can skip this slide. So how can restaurants and tourism boards really cater to the Muslim traveler? Soumaya also mentioned the Muslim-friendly spaces, and that halal food at a minimum was really a necessity. And I think that's absolutely true. Halal food is really a non-negotiable for Muslims. That's what they look for when they travel. And if they don't find it, they'll end up, looking for something maybe vegan or vegetarian or a fish option, because most fish is just fine to eat as long as it's not cooked in wine or something like that. So halal food at a minimum, and making that halal food option a little bit more visible is a really good idea. Now, you can, as if you have a restaurant or a hotel, you can create a halal friendly kitchen or catering service in your company or your business. And it doesn't have to be too complicated. It doesn't mean that the entire kitchen has to be halal. It just means that you might have like a separate area of the kitchen where halal food is not crossing with non-halal food. So it might be like one special pan that's used just for halal meats. And gloves are changed when a chef moves from that station to another. So it's just cooked separately. Or you have dishes that are alcohol-free, mocktails you could offer to travelers. That's really, that I don't see that very often, and I think that's a really good one to offer. And pork-free dishes, that's going to be a really big one. So when it comes to halal certified foods, that's something that if you work with a halal certifier or a halal, let's say a halal poultry company, and you want to order the chicken for your restaurant, you can always get a certification letter that indicates how the chicken was certified, from who. It will have a nice detail with dates and all of that. And I see this a lot in restaurants, in shops that where people come in and they just kind of want to ask, like, how is it certified or where is it certified? If it's visibly displayed somewhere, or you indicate that in your marketing, it's a really good thing, because Muslims are always asking that question. Here in the US, we have an app called Zabiha.com, and it's a restaurant app that you can enter your zip code and find out any restaurants that are by you that are serving halal food or partially halal. And that's really interesting. I wish that was something that was available more globally. There's nothing like that I know of. But as a restaurant or a hotel, you can enter your information and just say things like, our restaurant does serve alcohol, but we also have halal certified chicken or something like that, to that effect. So it's basically plugging into the fact that you have some available options. And that's something that, and Soumaya mentioned tech savvy travelers, they're going to be looking for things like that. The other thing is that tourism board promotions would be a fantastic option. I've seen where Halal Korea Restaurant Week 2020 was a really interesting event. I wish I could have gone. Their Facebook page was really neat. They had lots of promotions, contests. They had food tastings where people could, try bibimbap and all these interesting Korean foods, but they were all halal. And they gave vouchers and restaurant discounts for people to try things out. Really cool idea. Thailand is a really good at catering to Muslim travelers as well. I think Soumaya also mentioned Japan, but I find it fascinating that they offer halal food and prayer facilities at the Tokyo airport. I would also mention that adding Ramadan, we're in that month of Ramadan right now, which is a month of fasting, but at the end of every day at sunset, we have a nice sizable meal. And after Ramadan, at the end of Ramadan, there's Eid, which is a big holiday similar to Christmas. And so that's a day where people are eating nice big meals and, with family. You can really cater to the traveler who might be traveling during these times, or families who travel, for example, for Eid, they might go on vacations and trips. This is a really good way to get their attention and get their business. So one of the things that Soumaya and I came together on very, very interestingly was that we both really believe in this authentic, local, immersive culinary experience as something the Muslim traveler will love. And this is, we're actually doing one in Turkey this October. And the focus is on local restaurant experiences with a local tour guide who speaks the language, but also speaks English, who offers cooking classes. So for example, in this one, I'll be doing cooking classes because I used to live in this town in Turkey. And it's a really good way to bring us all together to say, we can take tours of the bazaar with a local food expert who will take us to local restaurants where food is prepared sort of right in front of you. And at the same time, people will visit local mosques. So not just the big touristy things, but the neighborhood mosques, the neighborhood bazaars, and also these tangible heritage site experiences that, really combines food with culture. And they get to ask us questions on a personal basis and a one-to-one basis because we're doing smaller groups. So this is a really, I'm really proud of that because what I see in the groups I'm involved in, for example, I'm involved in some WhatsApp groups here in California. And what I see is that especially these young travelers, these millennials, they are interested in this kind of thing, something off the beaten path, something very local where they can maybe even try to speak the language with the locals, but not just in Muslim countries. They are interested in places to do these kinds of things. And I've seen people wanting to go to places like Croatia, Zimbabwe, places I never would have thought that, people would really want to go. So they're not only focused on Muslim countries. That's another important aspect I think we should mention. Okay, so the really important part is, so you get down your idea, your itinerary, and what you really want to offer, but how do you market to this traveler? Now, the messaging is what's really important. If you get the messaging right, you will have repeat customers and those who share their good experiences with everyone they know. I have seen this over and over again in the food industry. So I work with a lot of food brands who would come to me and say, how can we get this messaging right? When you understand all these nuances that we're talking about and you understand sort of the language and the lingo, you can really tailor your messaging to them. And when you nail that marketing and you deliver on your promise, you're gonna have these travelers who will basically spread their experience by word of mouth, and they will be your best marketers. And I'm just reiterating here what Soumaya said, which is that they are the local economy supporters, high value travelers, and that their values align to support sustainable tourism. So how does this marketing to Muslim travelers benefit your business? Again, it opens up your business to a wider group of customers in this growing niche industry. I've seen it in food, and now we're seeing it in travel, and it's just booming. So once you nail that messaging and deliver the services, you're gonna have loyal customers. They like to share things with their families. Muslims come from pretty large families, and they're very social people. They have lots of friends. So it's pretty likable that they will be telling everybody in their circle. And now with social media, they kind of maybe do the social media marketing for you in a way. And also that when you start to offer these diverse, let's say, food offerings, that if you're in a hotel and you offer a buffet that is attractive to Muslim travelers, I would say that it would also be appealing to lots of other savvy travelers who are just interested in, an ethnic, kind of interesting, globally diverse type of food offering. And so the key takeaways here, I would say, are to clearly understand the context of halal-friendly services. So we mentioned a lot of things that you can kind of gather from what is important to Muslims and Muslim travelers in terms of their values and what their needs are, what their pain points are. It's also important, I think, to work closely with experts in halal. So let's say you have great ideas and you really want to do this, you're seeing the value in what we're saying here, and you want to expand your business into this niche area. I really suggest trying to find an expert in halal in your geographic area or in your specific industry and talk to them about how they can do that. Ask them to work with you, collaborate with them. Especially certifiers of halal products. You're going to want to talk to them about what offerings they have in terms of, because they're going to be your supply chain for your ingredients and your products. But people who really understand your geographic area and who you're marketing to is going to be really key. And then nail that messaging when you're marketing. Take your time to develop your marketing strategies and your communication style, and work with those experts, and then just do it. You won't regret it. So if we can be of any help, Soumaya and I are available to help you to really understand and work with your projects to get the Muslim traveler on board with your ideas.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Really interesting. And I think my major takeaway here is, apart from a couple modifications of the diet, no pork, no alcohol, and how the meat is prepared, Muslim food-loving travelers, surprise, like the same experiences as everyone else, right? Cooking classes, visiting people in their homes, food tours, and so on. So, and I think that statistic of 1 billion Muslims under 30 is really telling. People are always looking for ways to diversify their customer base. And do you remember well, you all aren't old enough, but about 20 or 30 years ago, everyone wanted the Chinese traveler. And then you started to see these big groups of Chinese travelers, and the big buses would come in and so on. But I think we really haven't seen Muslim travelers before a lot, at least in the Western world. And I think that the more we see, the more we will become comfortable with it. And also we'll start to understand better about different likes and preferences and so on. So it makes perfect sense to me to concentrate on the market. Soumaya and Yvonne, before we take questions, everybody, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A window. Why don't you both put your emails and or website addresses in the chat panel so people can copy that easily for you. Okay. If your destination does not have halal food, would you suggest kosher as an alternative?
Yes, I would. But you still have to be a little careful because kosher does allow for alcohol. So you'd have to make sure that it doesn't have that ingredient in it. But when it comes to meat products, yes, most definitely. It will just depend on the way it's cooked, prepared. So other than that, it's very simple.
Yeah, you're absolutely right too. And that fish being cooked in wine. I mean, I have some friends from when I lived in Portland who are kosher, and the little thing like sprinkling bacon on top of a salad that a chef might just forget, right? Because they normally do it. and or adding a little bit of wine to the fish and the sauce, and you know.
And we don't believe that it cooks out. So that's when people tell us that we're, you know, really intent on the fact that we just don't. So, you know, there are substitutes. Like that's what I do, is like find the substitutes for that. But you can just leave it all out. So if someone says, you know, you have a dish on the menu that has alcohol, like a fish dish with wine, like you mentioned, and someone asks for, you know, a halal option, just take the wine out and prepare the dish and it should be fine. So I'm glad when you mentioned that it's, aside from no pork, no alcohol, it's pretty easy. That's the truth. Halal is pretty easy.
What about vinegar?
Yeah, vinegar is fine. Yep.
Okay. And then of course there's red wine vinegar.
Yeah, that's sort of a misnomer, because if it's labeled as vinegar, legally, at least here in the US, if it's labeled as vinegar, it shouldn't have any alcohol unless they add alcohol onto the vinegar. Some gourmet products might do that, but it's very rare. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. It's you really have to read the label, don't you?
You do. We are label readers. Yes, we are. And that can be one thing that a restaurant might find challenging, is that Muslims will ask a lot of questions and they'll want to see labels. I myself am guilty of it, because I'm like, well, you know, can you tell me what's in it? And they're like, we don't know. So we're looking for emulsifiers and rennet. And, you know, it's just easier to already have halal certified products. You can find cheeses that have, if a cheese, for example, has a vegan label or vegetarian label, or, you know, no animal enzymes, just you can use that. So restaurants can really source their products well. It's not that complicated. Like cheese doesn't have to have a certification on it, but meat, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I'm known as 20 questions when I go out with my friends for dinner. So you know, how is this prepared? Where is this from? You know, and it gets to the point where people start rolling their eyes. But I'm curious, right? I want to know. I want to support local, and also part of it is educating the wait staff as well. But I feel like, you know, I didn't think about the animal rennet, or, you know, I would love to eat out with you and see the menu through your eyes, because I think it would really be eye-opening.
We'll have to do that one time when it's safe to travel.
Yeah, where you live in California now, is that right?
Yeah, in California.
San Diego, was it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, might have to get you up to LA. I get to LA, I haven't been to San Diego in years.
Yeah, I know a cool North African taco place. The guy does halal tacos, but he combines North African with Korean dishes.
Really?
And they're delicious.
Wow.
So we have to go there. There's lots of options. There's so many halal options now. And I think that's another thing, you know, what I'm seeing here in the US are Mexican taco places are going halal, or there's this fusion food. There's a lot of Asian with Mexican fusion food that's halal. So people are getting really innovative. They're interested in, I think we've kind of got beyond, at least in the US, we're kind of getting beyond like what's halal, and we're moving on to like more innovative food products and creation. So I would say if anybody is in that industry of like hotels or restaurants, you know, be creative. You know, don't be afraid to be creative. I think it's just important to be knowledgeable about what is halal, and you can certainly reach out to us and ask any questions. Like I'm always open to, I get the wildest questions about halal food, and it's fine. I get to understand what people aren't understanding about it and kind of clarify it, but it is much easier than it seems.
There's a question here about additives and processed food that are not halal. How do you handle that?
So yeah, that's an issue of supply chain ingredients. Yeah, and that's, again, this goes back to reading labels. Most problematic things are like emulsifiers, gelatin. Gelatin's a big one. So something like yogurt, which shouldn't even have gelatin in it, and it should be like a totally halal product because it shouldn't have anything in it that's problematic. Or hummus, I've seen gelatin be put in it. So gelatin, whether it's pork-based, it's definitely not going to be halal, but sometimes they use a beef gelatin. Well, if that beef is not processed in a halal way, so it's not a certified beef gelatin, it's not going to work for that product. So the best thing to do is look for like the most natural ingredients and the simplest products, because yes, additives can be problematic, unfortunately.
Now, you talked about messaging a lot and getting your message right. So what advice could you give to destinations or tour operators or hotels that are trying to put together packages for the Muslim food loving traveler? What should they be saying?
I think the first thing is speaking with someone who can help get that messaging right, because there's a fine line. I think if we see, for example, in the Korea example, what they've done so well is they have created this message of really being welcoming to Muslim travelers and dedicating, for example, Halal Restaurant Week. It's called Halal Restaurant Week, but it goes on for a month. But during that whole period, they've created a whole ecosystem in ways in which that they can connect with Muslim travelers. So it's about, I think, in some ways, building a two-way connection, especially now that everyone is on social media. It's very easy to connect directly with your target market. It's very easy to just kind of poll, for example, on Instagram, even on Twitter, to find out what they're interested in. And so you're showing a way of taking into consideration what their needs are and what their wants are. So finding that out first and then going out there and implementing it. So like in the career example, giving offers and kind of vouchers and prizes. And also one other thing that they did really well is having a local Korean chef cook local Korean food that was halal. So showing that we can have that kind of cross-cultural interaction, which is what we all want. Everyone wants it, whether you're Muslim or not, especially when it comes to food, and do so in a way that's sensitive.
Mm. You both have mentioned the desire to feel welcome. Is the Muslim traveler or the Muslim food loving traveler do they not normally feel welcome?
A lot of the time, if you look at kind of a standard travel magazine, like I've got a couple of magazines here, like Wanderlust or Condé Nast or whatever, you don't tend to see Muslims featured in them at all, except in service positions. So, for example, you'll see a Muslim woman in Morocco serving tea to the traveler, but you never see the Muslim being the traveler that's being catered to, who is the valued guest. And we just don't see that messaging at all. So a lot of that is kind of, I mean, the narrative is very complex and it varies from region to region. What we're seeing kind of in South Asia, which is why we keep going back to Japan, Korea, Thailand, Hong Kong, for example, Hong Kong Tourism Board has a whole kind of sub-website section for Muslim travelers. But you won't find this kind of dedication in a lot of, or any of the kind of websites here in the West, in Europe, UK, despite the fact that there are large native populations. So in many ways, we've got used to this kind of subpar level of service, but we're starting to open up our eyes to the idea that actually there are some destinations that are going above and beyond to make us feel welcome. And we'd probably rather go there than go to a destination that is not going to be as welcoming.
Well, times are changing, and one could argue that different groups of people have had similar experiences in the past. And I think that, like we were saying in the opening session, change is hard, but it's changed for the better. So
yeah, and everyone benefits.
We do. Now, there's a question about increasing the awareness of this growing market in the general marketplace. So how do we increase the awareness that Muslim travel is a thing in the general tourism marketplace?
I mean, really, I think anyone who is a tourism professional or a stakeholder and they are looking at building a steady flow of high quality, high value travelers to their destination, the onus is on them to do the research, because the research is already out there. There are stats, you know, I've shared the stats. The information is there. It's just opening yourself up to being able to look into it. I mean, a quick Google search will direct you to a ton of information. So it's there, it's just not being talked about. You won't see it at some of the major events. So I think it's great, actually, Eric, that you've enabled this conversation and this platform here. And I think we're doing our best, me, Yvonne, and many others like us, to try and get this message out there a bit more. But definitely, I think the onus is on stakeholders who want to tap into new markets. And now is a great time to do that. I mean, we're seeing, for example, Thailand has decided to change their tourism strategy. They're going to go for fewer numbers of tourists and higher value. We're seeing the same thing in New Zealand. We're seeing it also in Venice. All over the place, people have woken up to the idea that they need to have fewer tourists so that it can be more responsible, more sustainable, and have higher value. So if that's something that you're looking for, you've got a market that's ready to kind of cater to that need.
I've seen
Absolutely.
a parallel in the food industry as well, where 10 years ago when I started this, well, more than 10 years ago, I think a lot of brands were just afraid of, maybe they were afraid of the messaging, that they wouldn't get the messaging right. I mean, that's how most people reached me. But I had come to find out that many restaurants or certain food products were actually halal, but they were never promoted as such. They were never marketed as such. They were never even labeled as such. And I think that's a big mistake. Now we're in a different position now, but some of the brands that pushed through that, whatever it was, they have come to really benefit by catering to the Muslim consumer in general. I mean, so I think it's just a matter of time, but pushing through, getting the right information, as Soumaya said, do the research, and then working with somebody who really can help tailor the messaging to get it right, and then just going for it. In the world of social media, I think you can get a lot of feedback just on the engagement of the feedback from your followers, for example. That's how we collect a lot of our information, straight from the source.
I guess I would also say don't be scared to make mistakes. I mean, obviously nothing, really bad like cooking things in wine, but I think that if the effort is made and Muslim travelers realize, okay, they don't understand Muslims or what how we practice things, but they're trying. And then maybe rather than ripping their head off and, oh my God, you're not being sensitive to us saying, hey, that looks great, but you know what, there's bacon on that salad, in a kind of a polite, by the way type thing. And then they learn.
It's a go where you're treated best thing, right? Like if people just try, I think that's just a universal thing. If people just we try to understand each other. I mean, isn't that what travel is all about anyway? So that, hospitality factor goes a long way. And I think Muslims do, they tend to shop at and support places that they just feel respected and seen a little bit, just a little bit.
Welcome and respect. There's that theme again.
Yes. I think actually that makes me think of some of the best places where anyone, regardless of their background, their race, their religion, their gender, they will feel welcome. For example, Turkey, Morocco, where you've got really high hospitality. These are Muslim majority countries. So it's really embedded in our culture to host people really well.
Yes.
And so it's a two-way street in that we also hope to receive the same as well when we travel.
It's interesting. I have been to a couple Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia. I'm working with the Ministry of Culture there, Jordan as well, Morocco. And in every instance, the hospitality has been some of the best in the world. But it's ironic that when you travel, you're not receiving the same hospitality.
We'll get there.
Irony of it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't, that lack of hospitality is not directed against Muslim. It's just complete ignorance, not knowing how to be a graceful host. But anyway,
and family and gatherings, and it just kind of comes with the territory.
Indeed. And you have been invited to speak at a group in Finland. So if you would like to take note, I can introduce you to Christina later.
Cool.
And Biagio is just talking about a misinterpretation of Muslims. I mean, I think people inherently, we are scared of, and sometimes we don't trust people who are different from us. I mean, we've seen this in the United States, Europe. I mean, whether it's Muslim or Black or Asian or, gay and lesbian also. I mean, anyone who's different is the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we all are different. And we talk about something called nanodemography in one of our master classes. And, we had demographics, then we had psychographics, and now we say we have nanodemographics because we can actually all be multiple kinds of consumers in one day. You could be a mom, you could be a sister, you could be a partner, you could be a skier, you could be a painter. You're many different types of things. So to put people in one bucket is just not fair.
Yeah, and that's so true for Muslims. I mean, I am half Italian, half Puerto Rican, born in the Midwest of the US and became Muslim in my 20s. Like, how diverse can that be? And I'm not the only one like that. There's many. So Muslims in general are just really diverse amongst themselves. I mean, I can go to a mosque and find people from literally all over the world in one prayer time. And that's a fascinating aspect of the Muslim community. You know, I personally love that.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to see mosques available to Muslim travelers, say in Midwestern United States. That might be hard for that right now. Maybe go to the UK, you'll find mosques more easily there.
Oh no, we have tons.
In the middle of the United States?
Oh, you mean the middle of the country, like?
Yeah, Midwest.
Midwest, yeah, tons. Ohio,
Really?
Chicago, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And beautiful ones too.
They do tend to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The architecture is modeled after the desert environment, so it's really beautiful.
Mormon churches tend to be beautiful as well, real beautiful cathedrals. So I love architecture, and some of the architecture in the Muslim world is so fascinating. And I think that a lot of European cultures forget that the Arabs were there first, right? With the arithmetic, hospitality, architecture, astronomy. You know, you guys got there first.
It's interesting.
Go on, Yvonne.
All places of worship are so beautiful, and I think there's always some combination of cultures that did something.
Yeah, this links back to a discussion that me and Yvonne have quite a lot, which is that once you start to kind of look into architecture and food, you start to see that we're all just a mesh of one another. Like in Korea, I've seen dumplings that you can also get in Uzbekistan that look very similar, but you kind of think, well, where's the connection between Uzbekistan and Korea, apart from geography? So, you know, once we start to look past the things that we feel are differences, there's just such a rich variety of really exciting things that we can explore with each other. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about the halal travel market, because it's so diverse. You're not restricted to one destination or one culture. And there's this huge opportunity for cross-cultural pollination and interaction. And I hope that will come to fruition.
Yeah.
Well, we need to wrap up, but I would like to thank you both. You've definitely opened my eyes, and I think a lot of the people attending today, it's definitely a market that we want to know more about, and the timing is perfect with the theme of the summit, but also how the world is changing. So, thank you. We do so giving you the most respect for everything that you stand for, and really just thank you for taking the time and helping us to understand what's important to you.
Thank you so much, Eric. You invited us, and you were so excited to have us. That means a lot.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you very much for creating this space and enabling this conversation. And it's been really enjoyable.
Wonderful. Well, let's do it again, and I mean that.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will now move into our next room. So we'll close off this webinar, and we'll see you in the next room in just a moment. Thank you both again.
Thanks. Bye.